from the writers of Father Ted.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Sorry, do you speak English?
No, I don't, sorry.
Oh. My car's broken down and I wondered if you could tell me where to find a garage.
Well, you know, that's wasted on me. I don't understand what you're saying.
You don't speak any English at all?
Not a word, no.
Catch Big Train tomorrow at 10 on BBC Two.
Big Train.
This week on They Think It's All Over, we have two footballers with fabulous World Cup medal collections. Frank Leboeuf won his at the World Cup final in Paris this summer, while Gary Lineker won his by visiting every Esso station in the Greater London area. Join us for They Think It's All Over.
Thursday at 10 on BBC One.
News 24 takes BBC One through the night in a couple of minutes after the latest weather forecast with Michael Fish.
Hello there. All I can usefully say, I think, is batten down the hatches, at least as far as northwestern parts are concerned. Already very windy, and we're going to have gales or severe gales through the rest of the night and into the day, with winds gusting up to 60 to 90 miles an hour, and of course we have the heavy rain as well. It's that northwestern corner, especially Highland region and the Western Isles, that you're going to find the strongest winds. The winds have picked up already. They're going to peak around about the morning up to about lunchtime, and then tending to ease down a little bit later on in the day, all due to that area of low pressure. Already wet across most parts of the country. Clearer weather is following along, though, from the west, and by the end of the night, all but the extreme southeast should have seen the back of the rain, although there'll still be some really blustery showers or longer spells of rain in that northwestern corner. Everywhere very windy, but a mild night to go with it. There's the low in the morning, masses of isobar, so extremely windy in that northwestern corner, gusts 90 miles an hour perhaps across the north of Northern Ireland, even maybe 100 miles an hour in the Hebrides, and showers and longer outbreaks of rain there. The rain clearing away from the southeast early on, though, and then for most central and eastern areas, nothing more than just the odd sort of fleeting light shower, otherwise dry and fairly bright with some sunshine. And even most of the showers in those western areas will tend to get lighter and more scattered as the day wears on, but then late on again, some cloud thickening, yet more rain coming in across Ireland. A mildish day, 12 to 14 degrees, but very windy too. Still unsettled on Tuesday and Wednesday with more rain, especially in the south.
We couldn't begin to work out what it cost us.
If there's a cure for this, I don't want it, I don't want it. Think about it all the time, never let it out of my mind. I've got the sweetest hangover.
To tell you the truth, we couldn't give a fuss.
A new series of Modern Times, Tuesday at 9:30 on BBC Two.
This is BBC One joining our sister station BBC News 24 for the rest of the night.
Now back to our top story this hour, the latest on the relief efforts in Central America in the aftermath of Hurricane Mitch. Former US President George Bush is in Honduras today to see the progress of relief efforts after the devastation caused by the hurricane. I'm joined now from Nicaragua by one of our correspondents, Tom Gibb. Tom, I understand that you've been attending a press conference that Mr. Bush gave. What did he have to say?
He made fairly strong calls for renewed international aid to the area. He said, when he was asked whether the United States had some special responsibility towards Honduras because the US had a large number of bases here during the 1980s and has a very close relationship with the country, used it a lot at that time. And he said that obviously all countries have a strong obligation to help out now. He also called for debt to be relieved. He said that a country which had had its gross domestic product and its economy destroyed in the way that Honduras has had should get some kind of debt relief.
We've seen some reports here in London that the former US president raised concern about a potential flood of refugees heading towards US borders. Were those comments perhaps seen as insensitive?
They were slightly strange, I think, yes. This is something that the Hondurans have been talking about for quite some time, and the security of Hondurans in the United States. Obviously, this is a constant worry of US policy, and it's something that actually directs much of US policy towards this region. It always has done. The United States doesn't want large numbers of Central Americans moving up across the Rio Grande, and I mean, one might see it as insensitive, or one might on the other hand say he was just being honest.
Tom, we're about to see pictures of the latest conditions in Central America. We're seeing pictures, I think this is Honduras that we're seeing at the moment. We understand, we've been reporting that relief effort is at last beginning to arrive in both Honduras and Nicaragua. Can you bring us up to date on the situation?
Yes, there's been a large number of planes coming in the last 24 hours or so, although there was a hold-up today when a plane had a flat tire on the runway, and it took several hours to tow the thing off. The roads now to the south of the country are open, or at least the main road is. There's food being able to be transported that way, and then the airlift to the other areas. There's now something like 37 helicopters working continuously to ferry food out to the areas still isolated. That is actually most of the country, and there are some reports that the conditions in the east are actually getting worse because there's been a certain amount of new rainfall there, and with the land already totally saturated, there are fears that this could lead to more mudslides.
Tom Gibb in Honduras, many thanks. Back to Earth at the age of 77, the world's oldest astronaut, John Glenn, has said that he's feeling great following his 9-day flight aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery. The former US senator and the rest of the crew made a safe return to Earth on Saturday after travelling more than 3 million miles in space.
After sleeping like a log last night, the world's oldest astronaut said he was now back to 98% of his normal self. But he acknowledged that those first few steps on Earth were rather tough.
It's a funny feeling to have to walk sort of straddle-legged and not turn your head, I guess your alligator head. You're sort of locked in like this. You don't want to really turn your head too much outside your normal body motions.
Senator Glenn said the fun part of his trip was now over, and he had to fulfill his obligation to NASA by completing the experiments on aging. And the senator had this message for his fellow pensioners watching at home.
I think that's, you run your life, should run our lives, not by the calendar, but by how you feel and what your interests are and ambitions. Old folks have ambitions and dreams too, like everybody else.
Booster ignition and lift off.
When Discovery blasted off 10 days ago, the NASA commentator described John Glenn as an American legend. With typical modesty, Senator Glenn said he would leave out the hero stuff, and he paid tribute to his fellow crew members who have slipped into the background in this wave of international publicity. Despite his protests that this mission was all about science, it will only ever be remembered for one thing: John Glenn's ascent into history. Malcolm Brabant, BBC News, Florida.
This is BBC News from London. A reminder of the headlines this hour. Foreign aid is arriving in the Central American countries ravaged by Hurricane Mitch. Plane loads are on their way from Britain and the United States to help the thousands suffering after the region's worst storms in 200 years. In the United Kingdom, Queen Elizabeth led the ceremony to remember the dead of 2 world wars. Across Europe, similar ceremonies were held to mark 80 years since the end of the First World War. And still to come in this news, uncovering the mysteries of the deep. Divers discover lost treasure 300 years ago. A television portrait of Prince Charles at the age of 50 has alleged that he wants the Queen to step down, allowing him to accede to the throne. On Friday, the Prince and the Queen issued a strong denial of the claims, which had been leaked to the press. A documentary by a commercial television company, London Weekend Television, also suggested he has plans to modernise the monarchy, which he's impatient to put into practice.
It was a flattering portrait of Prince Charles as he approaches 50, and its main revelations had been well trailed. The most controversial assertion was made in the voiceover. The close aides who had apparently briefed the programme did not appear on camera.
We have been told by a senior aide that Charles believes the monarchy needs radical modernisation. He is impatient to get on with the job, and that's why the aide said The Prince would be privately delighted if the Queen were to abdicate.